Well, the Elior Lifetime Achievement Award goes to Marguerite Patten, OBE. And to present the award, I'd like to welcome Catherine Rowe, Managing Director of Elior.
On behalf of the Women of the Year and Elior, it gives me great pleasure to give this to Marguerite Patten.
Well, may I say thank you all very, very much indeed. And when I was heard I was going to be one of the recipients of this wonderful award, I felt very humble, because I thought, here am I, an old lady in her 90s, who all her life has done a job she loves, has a happy, gorgeous family. Really, I don't know that I've done anything very special. And then when I came and I heard the stories of my predecessors, I thought, Marguerite, you really don't belong in that league. They have done such earth-changing things. It is terrific. But may I just say a little bit on behalf of home economists of the past and of today. Very often those lovely chefs of today say, Marguerite, you should call yourself a celebrity chef. And I try to be as polite as possible when I say, but I'm not a celebrity chef. I'm a home economist. So they look at me in a rather pitying way and say, poor old thing, you know, she's losing her marbles or something. Home economists and chefs are two entirely different groups of people. A home economist has, in some ways, a similar training in cookery, but we also do such down-to-earth things as laundry and things like that in our training, because our objective is to always help people in their homes and in schools. In the past, before the government interfered with schools' curriculum, thank you very much. I'm glad to have your approval on that. Children grew up learning a certain amount about food. They learned how to handle food. They learned how to judge food. They learned how to look for good food. But now they don't learn any of that in most schools, not in all. We've got to be careful. There are exceptions of everything in Britain. And therefore, so many children we hear today in the press don't know anything about food. They don't know how to boil an egg. They don't do anything at all. Well, of course not, because it was their mothers who were the first to have that very bad period in schools, who didn't learn the sensible things of running a home. You may feel, compared to so many important things of the world today, that that is relatively unimportant, but it isn't, you know. If one has, as I was lucky to have, a wonderful, stable home life as I was growing up, you've got that wonderful, wonderful background to fall back on. And of course, as you saw in the film, much of my early work was done in the war. And I would just like to say, on behalf of the home economists who worked with me during the war, that if ever any people did a good job of work, that perhaps was our greatest hour. We were part of the advisory service of the Ministry of Food. I think you might say we were the frontline troops. We were the people who met the public. Rationing began, as I'm sure you know, in January 1940, not when war was declared, 1940 January. And then it began. And I assure you it was a horrible shock to the whole of the British nation when they saw their meat ration was down to 2 small lamb chops a week. 1 egg a week if you were lucky, or one a fortnight if you were unlucky, and the rest of the ration fitted in like that. So we had to move in. We had to try and persuade the people that in winter, when there wasn't a fresh tomato, when there wasn't anything that came from abroad, that they really would be happy with salads of raw turnip and swede and things like that. Of course they weren't happy. No one in their right sense would be happy with that, instead of a grapefruit for breakfast, an orange juice or something like that. But this was our job. Have you ever tasted a mock banana, I would say to people. Well, if you've forgotten what a real banana tasted like, and with a little bit of imagination, a mashed parsnip has a slight resemblance to a banana. And children grew up during the war with banana sandwiches that had no relation to a real banana as well. As you heard again in that film, we worked in all sorts of extraordinary places. When I reported to the Ministry of Food, a bright young thing who'd been giving demonstrations and was very happy doing them, I was told, Marguerite, on Monday, get over here early because you've got to get your stall put up early. I beg your pardon. You're going to put your stall up in Cambridge Market and you're going to give demonstrations in Cambridge Market. I've never given demonstrations in the market, said stupid Marguerite. No, said my boss, now's the time to learn, dear. And that's where I learnt. If you imagine me on my stall, here I am, and I'm saying to the passers-by, now I've got an absolutely lovely pudding recipe for it. Now it's got grated carrot in, it's got this in. Oh, you'll love it. It's absolutely delicious. Maybe not by the pre-war standards delicious, but you know, people are always surprised when I've demonstrated at the Imperial War Museum or places where I've shown those wartime recipes. People say, oh, they're quite good. Of course they're quite good. Did they think a nation would keep healthy for 14 years of rationing if they weren't edible? We had to work so hard to make them edible. And wherever we went, we had to encourage people. Some of the worst places to work, I might tell you, were in factory canteens. Can you imagine it? Music while you work, keeping everything jolly. People chattering, chattering, chattering. Knives and forks clattering. And above all that, a home economist had to say, now I have a splendid winter salad for you. And that was the way we had to behave. And that was the way we did behave. And you know, if I want my blood pressure to rise, and I don't, it is the fact that we managed, the Ministry of Food managed to keep the whole of Britain healthy during those 14 years of rationing. Our children grew up strong and healthy. We were all strong and healthy. Why? Because we were fortunate enough to have the most wonderful farmers, aided by the Land Army, we mustn't forget them, who produce a marvellous amount of vegetables. Because the theme song of those war years was, you mustn't take up space in ships. Ships were needed for much more urgent things than a few bananas and oranges and things like that. So we got the country through those war years, and I think I and everybody who lived through them learnt many lessons about don't wasting food and really making the best of what was available. My career since then has really gone on to do very much the same sort of thing. I've been so fortunate that I've met such interesting people. I've worked with so many of the leading chefs of today, and I admire them tremendously, but I'm not one of them. I am a home economist, let's get that pure and simple. So really, all I can say is this, that when I look at Britain today, I don't get as despairing as some people do. The press get carried away sometimes, don't they? Oh, all our children are overweight and not healthy. Rubbish. Some of them are, and that some is what we should worry about. Some adults are not as healthy as they might be. Again, with children, It's often they don't have enough exercise, because again, our splendid politicians took away the games field. We mustn't have competitive sport, they said, which sounded very lofty, which is absolute nonsense. Can I just add a postscript? And that is to thank the people who so nobly have escorted me and my sticks everywhere. And it's a little bit of a gypsy warning. I'm not suffering from an incurable disease, that's why I need sticks. I'm suffering from being a very stupid woman and falling down the gap between the platform and the train.